What's up everybody, Johnny over at Witchcraft Whips, good morning. Today we're gonna finish our whip. That's right, we're gonna finish our 4-foot mini bullwhip today. And today's schedule, we are going to roll this whip. We are gonna make a fall, make a wrist loop and 2 knots. 1 heel knot and 1 transition knot. So we're gonna head on to my favorite part of whip making, the rolling. And so we're on to the fall. Here we have a piece of latigo that we're going to use to make our fall. The point of the whip is about 5.5 mils. And taking in consideration the weight of the latigo and the thickness, I think we will cut this to about... We're gonna cut this to about 5 mils at the thicker end. And there we are. For the time being, the fall is about 12, 24, about 30 inches long. But we're gonna shorten this some, so it's probably gonna end up just about at 24 inches. Now what we're going to do right now is we are going to put a slit right here into the thicker end of the fall. We are going to take off the corners up here and round that off a bit. And to make the slit we are going to use... I'm missing a knife. I have a specific knife for this actually, that's quite handy. I'm going to do a quick search of the workshop. And here it is. Now we're gonna find the center should be about right there, and there we go. Now the simplest thing to make this slit is a sharp chisel, and this knife basically is a sharp chisel at the end right here. You can of course use a regular knife, but if you have a chisel at hand, that's way easier. Now we're gonna round off the end of the fall right here. So I'm gonna start by taking off the corners, like so. Like so. And like that. Now you sort of have, I hope you can see that actually. Now we have around the top right here, but it's quite choppy, I would say. So I'm gonna take off these small corners right here and round it off just a little bit more. Like so, much better. Now we're gonna get the fall onto the hook. We are gonna knock off the corners, give it a lot of grease, then we're gonna round it off some more before we attach it to the whip. So we're gonna get the fall onto the hook. so. And now we're gonna knock off all 4 corners. And for that we're gonna need 3 things. One is a finger guard, the second is our trusty Mora, and third is a bit of leather grease to help this slide along here nicely. Now it doesn't matter in which order you take off the corners, but all 4 need to come off. And we're gonna try to get as far up the slit as we can. Ideally we're gonna go all the way from the back, but I usually start somewhere around here and then I take off the corners up here later on. And we're gonna flip it over to the back side and do the same thing. And now we're gonna round it off around the slit. Now we're gonna need a strand of rue and a lot of grease. And you can use, you know, leather conditioner, Peckar's leather dressing, you could use leather balm, or, you know, as long as you pack this full of yummy greases, it will be happy. Rue strand goes around once and goes around twice. Grab the fall in one end, and then we just run this strand up and down. And pull on it quite hard. Now somewhere around here will probably be a good length for this whip. So I'm gonna cut the fall off a bit further down just to be on the safe side. And we're gonna test crack this once the fall is onto the whip. And then we're gonna trim the fall to get a good action onto the whip. Now we're gonna take the ends of the strands and feed them through the loop on the fall. And there we are. The fall goes up the thong. We want to tie the fall hitch around the slimmer end of the fall, because the fall widens. So if you tie the fall hitch tightly around the slimmer end of the fall, when we pull the fall through later on, it's gonna tighten even more as the fall widens. And now it's in there nice and tight. So we're gonna cut our strands, making sure not to cut the fall. That's our fall hitched on. And while we're at the vise, I thought we should use some scraps cut off from the overlay and the bellies to plait the wrist loop. And these have been resized to about 3 mils, and we're gonna do a 5-strand flat braid. So I'm gonna get these 5 strands into the vise. Here we go. Like that. We're gonna get our grease ready. So we have our whip, we have our soon-to-be wrist loop. Now we're on to the knots, and we're gonna do a transition knot and later on a heel knot. And I'm gonna start with the transition knot and the foundation. And I don't like it when the transition knot gets too fat or too bulky, so the only thing I'm gonna use is a little bit of roux. We're gonna staple that in place and then put some artificial sinew over that to just shape it a little bit more. And now for our heel knot foundation, we are gonna put a little bit of lead in there. Now the lead I use is, I don't know what it's called actually, but it's used for church windows. And it has, yeah, you probably can't get that on camera, but it's slightly rounded and flat on the bottom. So I just hammer it flat when I use it for the heel knot. So we're gonna put a bit of lead on there and take it from there. And now we're gonna cover this with some leather. Then we're gonna attach the wrist loop and then put some artificial sinew over that. Now it's time to put our wrist loop on there. So we are gonna trim off the ends and see if the size is about right. Something like that. Looks fine to me. This is for a younger person, so it would be a tight fit for my hand, but it's gonna work out pretty good, I think. Now, normally what I would do is cut a little bit off the handle loop and staple that, just a short piece like this, onto this side and onto the other side to make up for the size difference that the wrist loop adds to these two sides. But I didn't end up having enough of the wrist loop. If I did cut a couple of pieces off, the wrist loop would become too small. So I'm just using a bit of scraps right now. Might look a bit stupid, but it works. And if it works, it ain't stupid. So we're gonna go over this with the artificial sinew right now and form the final shape of the heel knot. And then we're getting ready to tie the knots. And when I shape the heel knot using the artificial sinew, I always try to look at the heel knot in profile to make sure that everything is uniform. And there we are. So now we're gonna cut the strands for the knots and tie the knots. And here we are, our finished whip. 4 foot long mini bullwhip, single belly with a 12 flat overlay. So that's basically it for this mini series. Stick around for the test cracking, we're gonna head out right now. But I just wanted to say, if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to keep up with the videos to come. So let's take this beauty out for a spin. And here we are. Now the whip doesn't have much of a rollout right now. Very stiff, but we're gonna see if we can get a few cracks out of it. Bit difficult to crack it right now due to the stiffness, and I don't want to work the whip too hard. But definitely a working whip. So thank you very much for tagging along for the mini series, and I'll see you in the next video, okay?